Hello, welcome to Native Yoga Center. My name is Todd McLaughlin. Today I want to cover the posture, how to do the Ubaya Padangusthasana, both big toe posture. Ubaya Padangusthasana is where we catch a hold of our toes, balance on the hips, and have straight arms, straight legs, and maybe even point the feet a little bit and holding and balancing here. I'd like to break it into the how to do the pose on its own, and then also show you some of the transitions or what the transition is in the Ashtanga Yoga primary series, how to come up into the Ubaya Padangusthasana. The word Ubaya means both, so it's referencing both big toes, and Padangushta, Pada references the foot, Angushta references the big digit of the foot, meaning the big toe. So both big toe pose, Ubaya Padangusthasana. All right, so when we look at the Ubaya Padangusthasana, basically what is happening is we are keeping our legs straight, holding our toes, and extending the spine while balancing on the hips. So if you are unable to touch your toes, then, obviously the pose is very challenging because we have it as a prerequisite that we are able to connect our hands to our toes to then bring it up onto the hips and balance. So the strategy throughout the primary series, there's a whole bunch of forward bending. So at this point in the practice, we are probably proficient at catching the toes. But if you're a beginner to yoga and you're just encountering this pose for the first time, let me show you a couple things you can do. So basically, the key really is start to work and open up the hamstring muscles. So a couple of key approaches are to do a straight legs, to reach as far forward as you can, to lift your chest up so that we extend the spine, and to work flexing forward. So with this practice over time, we find we are able to actually touch our big toes. Now, another way that you can approach this posture when learning is to, while sitting here on floor, to use your two fingers to grab the big toes. The grip is to take the index and the middle finger and slide in between the big and the second toe to make the catch, and to work on our ability to even achieve this. Because if we can achieve this, then if we bring the heels in a little bit closer, it is possible to balance on the hips. So that is really one of the key ideas that we're aiming to strive toward, is find the balance point and to be able to grab the toes. It is a lot easier to grab a hold of the toes if we come through the center and let our knees open apart and grab. Another way that we could or can approach is to bring the legs together and to attempt to grab the toes here and practice balancing. So if you do have enough range to go around your legs and to grab a hold of the toes and to balance on the hips, then this is a great starting point. The real challenge here is then, being able to straighten the legs. And hence, in the beginning, the key, if you are approaching this pose and you're wanting to modify it, then grab the big toes and just practice balancing on your hips while holding the toes. And so this is, earlier we did a posture where we are holding the toes with the feet apart. Now when we have the feet together, our goal is to be able to extend the legs and hold the toes. So at some point, notice here that my knees are wide. Once I'm able to clear my arms above the knees, that's when we're going to bring the knees together. And once we have the knees together, then to go all the way to the point where we straighten the legs. So, there's so many different poses we can use to do this sort of hamstring stretching. A classic in the beginning of the primary series is working on Padahastasana and or even the Padangusthasana, which is really the same exact pose, but standing. So we have a host of forward bending, hamstring stretching, flexibility postures that we will employ or use to open the hamstrings, so that when we get here, we start exercising now, doing this work while balancing on the hips. Now, when you balance on the hips, we have the fleshy part of the gluteus muscles, the gluteal muscles on the hips. You also just kind of be aware you have your sacrum bone. Now, when we hold the pose, if we have a deep rounding on the back, we're going to be tipping back and resting the majority of the weight back on our sacrum. When we get a little bit more advanced in the pose and we have the ability to get our legs straight, we can start to actually lift the chest and lean a little bit of weight forward. And at this point, we're moving a little closer toward balancing between the ischial tuberosities and the sacrum. So the ischial tuberosities are those two bony landmarks at the base of the pelvis. So, we will transfer a little bit about where that pressure is. And I want to point out that sometimes if you feel like I have a tailbone injury, or if you have suffered a tailbone injury, if you take a blanket and you place it here to serve a little bit of cushioning, sometimes it can be a little easier to find balance on a blanket because it gives you some indentation ability, like your your ischial tuberosities, the base of the pelvis, can rest into the cushion of the blanket. So in the beginning, if you're a true yoga beginner and you are, the first thing to really focus on is put the time in on getting your hamstrings opened up. And then the next thing I want to point out is the transition in the Ashtanga Yoga Primary Series is really the more challenging part of this pose. So I'll demonstrate. The transition here is to go from lying down position to take legs above head into a plow-like position, to take your arms above your head and grab a hold of the both big toes, and to attempt to roll up with straight legs and land the balance precisely in this point here. So that takes quite a bit of work. I mean, one of the key elements in this transition is letting the back round. So we do need to have the ability to have the back round. Some of us, we have this sort of flat back element where even if we try to round the back, it doesn't have that range of motion. So that makes for a very challenging situation, because if you are attempting to roll up and your back is flat, what happens is we'll get like stuck down here. Like we'll try to roll up and it feels like there's just no way I can get momentum to roll up. So one of the keys for learning the pose, in my opinion, is if we're a brand new practitioner, we just want to test the water. First of all, we want to see if we have the ability to take our legs above the head. So in a lot of cases, we'll try to come up and we'll get stuck right here. But if you can at least get to here, you're in the beginning phase of the pose. The way we can transition is to bend the knees, grab behind the legs, and roll up. So start working your ability to just come up a little bit in a plow, to grab your legs, bend your knees, roll up. Once you bend your knees, roll up, then set the big toe grip and start to work your balance in the pose. It's perfectly okay to hold here. Of course, over time, you'll be able to straighten the legs. A real classic scenario we see is this really deep rounding in the back. So in some cases, it can be a good idea to not straighten the legs, to bend the knees, to work a little bit more of the extension of the spine. So instead of flexion and rounding forward, we extend. And then while holding the extension, we can work on extending or straightening the knees or bringing the legs up in front. So again, just to recap this first technique, you lie down, you try to come up as high as you can. When it's time to roll, grab behind the knees, roll up, catch the toe grip, balance. From the balance, try to straighten. Okay, now technique on how to do the challenging method. So watch what happens when I lay down on my back and I take my legs above the head. I try to grab a hold of my big toes. And when I go to roll, I'm going to throw my legs with straight legs. Notice I dorsiflex my ankles. So I have my feet pointing right here. When I go to roll, I'm going to dorsiflex and come up. So part of the strategy as well, I do a little tiny movement with my arms here. I'm going to go ahead and try to throw, dorsiflex, roll up. Now, if you go too fast, you separate and just come down, like bend your knees. Obviously, don't crash. That's probably, I don't want to, it just seems obvious, but I'll point it out. So a big portion of this is having the hamstring flexibility already in place and the ability to roll up. What is your biggest challenge with this pose? Type in the comments. I will help answer and see if we can get a little bit of advice in the direction for you to figure out a way to try to make this a little bit easier. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Remember, you can write me a message at info@ nativeyogacenter.com, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you have. And visit us on our website, nativeyogacenter.com. All right, let me check and see. If you're tuning in live on one of the social media platforms, you can always ask questions during these tutorials as I'm doing them live. So if you have a question, don't hesitate to ask. There's no stupid questions. Send them my way. During this tutorial, I can answer them for you. I'm here every Thursday at 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time and 12 p.m. Eastern Time. All right. With that being said, I will see you soon. Namaste.